What's up YouTube, and welcome to another draw along with me using Infinite Painter. Now today we're going to create this sort of minimalistic desert scene with this moon or planet in the background. As always, there's links to everything you're going to need in the description down below. I'll throw the palette on the screen now if you want to grab the colours from the video. Otherwise, there's helpful videos in the description on how you can import a palette, how to create a palette, and lots of other resources you may need. Now, as always, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to drop a like down below and hit subscribe for weekly content. And with all that said, let's get started. So then once you've got everything for today's design, you've got the canvas sides, of course, as well as the palette. The first thing we're going to want to do is set our background gradient. So we're going to go ahead and go straight up to our create options, and we're going to go to the option of gradient. And we'll go ahead and we'll use linear, and we'll drag from the top left down towards the bottom right. And then you get this line here of your gradient. Now your gradient has points on either end, which are the two colors that transition into each other. Now in this bottom right corner, we need to tap on this node here. We need to change the palette. We need to grab the palette for today's design. And we're going to use this yellow color, so the first color. And then we'll tap on the top left node. And then in the palette, we'll use the third color. Now we do also need to go ahead and tap in the middle of the line to add another point. And if we tap on this point, we're going to grab the second color in the palette, and that will give us a really beautiful gradient of color. Now we're just going to move this ever so slightly up towards the top left, just a little bit. And then when we're done, hit the tick. Now I don't particularly like how the gradients work. They are very they don't blend very well together. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our create options. We're going to go to edit, filters, and we'll go to structure and blur. So we'll just blur them in a little bit more, and we'll just go all the way up towards that 100% mark, and that should nicely get rid of that sort of quite solid line in the middle, and hit the tick when you're done. Now that is our background. We're also going to reuse this a couple of times. So the next step is to add in our sort of desert hills. So we're going to go ahead and create a new layer. We're going to go ahead and go to our brush. We're going to use under calligraphy, the monoline brush, and I've actually gone to my settings of this brush, and I've set the smoothness up to 100%, just so that your lines are nice and smooth. And I'll go back. I'm going to grab my color, and I'm going to set it to this color here on the far right of the palette, so the fourth color. The size doesn't really matter, but you do want it somewhat small. Mine's set to 15% because the point at the top of the hill, we want to make sure is, of course, a nice sort of quite pointed tip. So I'm going to start over here on the edge of the screen, and I'm going to just create a curve that dips and then flicks up at the right, and you can hold your pen down to get a nice perfect arc. Whereas if I let go and if I tap on that line again, I now have the option to adjust that if needs be. So I can adjust some of the points, I can get the curve exactly how I want it and into position. Now we want sort of the flick up to sort of rest there, and it's got a little bit of a dip here and just raises slightly on the left. And when you're done, just tap away, and that line is now in place. And then we're going to just zoom in, and from the top of the sort of peak here, we're just going to go ahead and create a curve off to the right. Hold your pen down to get a nice perfect arc, and it should somewhat snap to that point. If not, just tap on the line and adjust it where needs be. And then tapping away, we've now got our sort of peak hill here. So then we go ahead and go to our options under create and fill. And we'll tap in here. Now you will get this little sort of fuzzy line here on the edge. You'll need to go ahead and sort of tap and drag to the right a few times, and that increases the threshold, and then you'll get rid of that line. So once you've done your hill, you can hit tick. And then we just need to add one more layer to this. So we create a new layer. We're going to go ahead and tap on this layer and clip it to the hill shape. We're going to go to our colors, and for a minute we'll just grab the yellow so it's nice and obvious, so the first color in the palette. And then from the point at the top of the hill, we're going to go ahead and create a curve that goes outwards like this. Again, I'm going to go ahead and tap on the line so I can adjust it afterwards, and then just adjust it freely. Now, I'm pretty happy with how sort of low that swoops down. I might even just make sure it completely runs off on this left-hand side, but maybe just move it across a little bit so the swoop is a little bit more off to that left edge. And the only thing we need to do is zoom right in and just make sure the top of this line runs nicely through the very tip of our hill. And if we zoom out, that looks great to me. I'll tap anywhere around the outside to complete it. And then I'm just going to go ahead and go from this point. I'm just going to draw right to the edge of the screen and go all the way around and link up to that point. So I've drawn outside of the boundary you can't see. But if we then go to our create options and go to fill, we tap in that space, and again, you'll get that fuzzy line. Just drag to the right hand side a few times and you'll eventually get rid of it, or just simply hit the tick when you're done and manually get in there and just get rid of it. You could have used the fill, but I like to use the monoline brush. I want to be in control of all of my curves and lines, and then the fill option is just a little bit of effort to do so. So now we've got that shape, we can now add some extra gradients to both these areas. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on the yellow area layer and go to the option of alpha lock, which means we can't paint outside of it. Now, if we go to our create options and go to gradient, we can draw a gradient inside that space. So I'm going to draw in a gradient like this from here to here. And let's just draw that in again. And then we want our colors to transition a lot like the background. So the top of the hill wants to be yellow. So I'm going to tap on that top pointer here and hit this color here, the first color in the palette. And the bottom color down here wants to be set ideally to this color here. So it is the third color. But I want to add that transition color in the middle. So again, we tap on that gradient again in the middle. We tap on it and switch it to the second color in the palette. And that should give you a nice little bit of a gradient. Now, again, I don't like how they blend. We'll adjust them again in a second. Now I'm just going to adjust this slightly, just move that out to there. And I want the yellow to sit a little bit higher. I want more of a transition of color. So I'm going to hit the tick when I'm done. And because the layer is alpha locked, it won't spill out. So meaning we can go up to our create options and go to the option of edit. We can go to filters and we can go to structure and blur. And we can just blur that out to 100%. You can do this a couple of times if you really don't like the color. So I could hit the tick and then repeat that again. So go up to edit, filters, structure and blur, and push that all the way to the right. And that'll just give you a nice transition of color. So now we just need to add a bit of color over here. So we're going to go down to that shape, the main shape for the hill, tap on it and use the option of alpha lock so we can't paint outside of it. And again, we're going to go up to our create options and gradient, and we'll drag from here down to here. And it will repeat the last one. And I don't actually sort of hate that. I like the fact you've got a shaded side and a little bit of light sort of creeping around. So we will reuse those colors again and fade these lines out a little bit. So you can see there, once you start to pull the yellow round, you should just about get a little bit of a blend in between the left side and the right side and a shaded side of the hill. So something like that will do the trick. You can maybe even move that middle point down if you want, just a smidge, but we'll just reset that back, hit the tick, and then we've got a cool gradient on that side. And again, we need to go up to our create options and go to edit, filters, structure and blur. And we'll swipe from left to right. Well, we'll increase the percentage up to 100% and hit the tick. That will give you a really nice gradient on the back. And that hill is actually done with. So now we can simply go ahead and on the top layer out of the two that's clipped, tap on it and use the option of merge. And that will move it down onto one layer. We can then tap on this layer and duplicate it. And the bottom one out of the two, go up to your create options. We'll go to edit and we'll go to basic transformation. We could just move this off to the left hand side. We can even scale it up and down if we want to, make it a bit smaller, but we can move our second hill just in behind there, and you've got these beautiful gradients happening. They look really cool. And hit the tick when you're done. So that's our hills done. We can now start to work on the sort of big moon or planet, whatever it is in the background. So we'll go down to our big gradient layer here. We'll go ahead and create a new layer. We're going to go to our brush. We're going to go to the option of fills. And we're going to use the solid fill. You can use any of these other ones. You could use the grunge fill if you want. That will add some cool texture in there. But I'm going to use the solid fill. And my color, it doesn't matter what the color is for the moment. We can just set it to the darkest tone so you can see it on the screen. And then on this layer, we're just going to go ahead and go to our create options and go to shapes and circle. We're going to draw out from the center, creating this sort of big moon shape to this sort of scale. Make sure you can try and fit it as best you can towards the center of your canvas, and positioning wise, in behind that back hill there will look great. And then once you've done that, tap on the circle icon when you're done. Then what we're going to want to do is erase from the top left edge and also some craters towards the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and go to our eraser for the second, and we're going to tap on it. And we're going to go ahead and go to the option of sprayers, and we're going to use the soft airbrush. Now the size is almost maxed out. It's about 940, and in this top left corner I'm just going to circular motion just erase from it until that line is almost completely faded, at least at this top left area. And then leave the bottom right, but something like that will do the trick. Then what we want to go ahead and do is on the same layer, we're going to change our eraser. We're going to tap on it and go to the option of fills, and we're going to go to solid fill. We're then going to go to our create options, the circle, and now we can start cutting away circles from the surface. So we could create like a big crater here, some slightly smaller ones, and you may have to sort of zoom in and just adjust them as you wish. You know, you can get in a bit smaller and make them a few smaller areas. So try and just vary up your crater sizes and nice small ones. You kind of have to drag out and create a big one before you can create a small one. That's kind of what I was trying to get out there a second ago. So we'll just create some really small ones in here and just vary them up. Try not to get too many too close to each other or too repetitive. You don't want, you know, some right next to each other that are in like a little cluster. And lots of small ones will look great as well. They'll fill in the gaps. So we'll just make our way all the way around here. We can put some a little bit further up, but we don't want to necessarily run up too high because this is where all the erasing happened up there. So we want to sort of leave that area nice and faded out. Nice and sort of mysterious on that side, I think. I'm going to make this one a bit bigger, so I'm going to just increase it from the center there. A nice sort of main focal point there, and don't have any that compete with it size-wise. So create some very small little circles in here. Lots of little dots. Maybe the odd one that strays a little bit higher will look fine, and then maybe one just right on this edge. Zooming out, I'm happy with how that looks. So once you're done, tap on the circle icon, and they'll all be applied. And then all we're going to do is we're going to go down to this background gradient we created and tap on it and duplicate it. We're then going to drag it above our sort of circle layer that we were just erasing from. Tap on it and clip it to your moon or planet. Then go to your create options and go to the option of edit, basic transformation. And then we'll use this icon here to rotate it. So once, twice, and you could leave it like that if you like that. And I'm pretty happy with how that looks. We've got a nice sort of glow from the left, and we're going to leave it exactly like that. We've got that cool gradient, and there's like this blending point up here which looks really cool. So I've rotated it twice using that icon there. Hit the tick when you're done, and then we're going to go down to our background layer. So this one here just in front, we'll create another new layer. Your color wants to be set to white now in the top left of the disk, and your brush wants to probably be set to the calligraphy option of monoline. And you just want to go ahead and start tapping away. So let me just move my layers out of the way. Let's get rid of them completely. And we're going to tap away, creating some of these main stars. Now my brush size at the minute is set to 15, just for your reference. So we're just going to create some stars. Now I'm going to keep it somewhat minimalistic. I don't want to add in too many. I might even then reduce my brush size down again to maybe around about 4.2. Add in some pretty small stars in here, just to add some nice variety against the stars that I've already added. And you don't want to add in any in the middle here. Of course, the moon would sit in front of the stars, so you don't want to add any of those because you wouldn't see them. I'm going to make the brush size a bit bigger this time, up to about 8. This will give me sort of my medium size. So I've added in a large size at 15, a medium size at 8, and a small size about 4.2. And that gives you a really nice variety in the amount of stars in the background there in terms of their weight. So once you've done that, I've kind of only just gone around the planet. We can go to the layer. If we tap on the layer, we'll get the option to adjust its blend mode. And if we tap on here, it's currently set to normal. If we scroll down and we tap on the option of overlay, those stars now will start to blend in with the color scheme for today's design. And if I go ahead now and pinch with 2 fingers, we go full screen with 4, we end up with today's finished design. So there we go, a super simple way to create a minimalistic sort of landscape. As always, please be sure to share your designs with me over on Instagram. I look forward to seeing what you get up to. I also have a Facebook group if you want to come and join that and get involved with the community and share any of your creations from anything you've made in Infinite Painter. Or maybe ask some questions to the community and see if you can get some help from there. As always, make sure to subscribe for weekly content, hit the like button, and with all that said, I'll see you in the next one.